There we go. Oh, guys, it's Cody from Team Yoda, bringing you guys a deck profile for my friend Josh's Orcust, and let's jump right into it.
Alright, I am Josh, and this is the Orcust deck that I have built for some time now. It's got a really unique blend of light sworns, and I'm just going to show you the bits and parts of it today. So first part is monsters, and as with all Orcust decks, having 3 of these gears through the Orcust Mech Knights are very useful. Once again, when they are normal or special summoned, it sends a Orcust or a World Legacy card to the graveyard. And basically, for all Orcust, as you know, they have to rely on graveyard material. Other little effects that I usually don't use as often, if it's in a column of 2 or more cards, it becomes a tuner monster. And finally, if this is the only monster on its field, I can summon a token to my opponent's side of the field and to my side of the field, which are level 1 dark machine tokens. So, but having 3 is a must, because you can do a lot of combos with other Orcust cards, which I'll show you later. I include 3 of these, the Orcust Nightmares. These guys are very useful, especially for getting the combos off to get into a couple of the link monsters, like for example Galatea. Their effects basically say when they're sent, while they're in the graveyard, I can banish it from the graveyard, then target a face-up monster on the field, and I can send a Dark Machine type monster to the graveyard, and for each of its levels that I send, the monster that is targeted gets its attack increased by 100 for every level. Now, that's not the entire focus, because the highest that you could possibly get in this deck, which we'll get into, is World Legacy World Wand, which is a 8 level star monster, which only means you get 800 extra attack, but the purpose is just to get these guys, more guys into the graveyard, and to have this guy be banished. And I'll tell you why with the ones that are coming up. So, but you have to have 3 of those. Next, some say not to run too much of this card, but I say why not? I run 3 symbol skeletons. Basically, their effect is while they're in the graveyard, I can banish this card from the graveyard and target a Orcust monster in my graveyard and special summon it. Now, this combo is especially useful for 2 reasons. 1, it gets you more materials onto your field, and 2, with the right cards, which I'm talking about these 2 in particular, Orcust Babel and Dingirsu, which I'll get to later, makes it a really deadly quick effect combo and puts your Dingirsu to use not just on the field, but also in the graveyard. But yeah, it's a once per turn thing, and when you use it, I believe it is that, yep, you can only summon dark attribute monsters for the rest of the turn, but since your deck is almost entirely dark, special summoning any other monsters won't necessarily be required. So I include 3 of these. Another one which people are like, you only need to include 1. I would disagree. Including 3 Orcust Brass Bombards, which have a very unique ability. When they're in the graveyard, I can banish it, and I can special summon an Orcust monster from my hand. Now, sending one of these is not too difficult, especially with this deck, but it does open the floodgate to making more use of Girsu. And again, since it can be activated on normal or special, Bombard gives it both times to activate Girsu's effect. And it's already a tuner, which is one of the few ones in the deck, because all the rest of them are not necessarily tuners. I mean, you can check, but I highly doubt any of these are tuners. But I'm surprised that Bombard actually has the tuner stat, which is why I include 3 of them. You never know when you want to go into upgrade synchro monsters, so I include 3. Here is one of the cards that I said would work with Orcust Nightmare, and that is World Legacy World Wand. I include 2 of these. I only include 2 because, as you'll find out with the extra deck, these can be easily recycled. And basically, when they are sent to the graveyard, actually, you send them to the graveyard with Nightmare's ability, but then with World Legacy World Wand, once per turn while it's in the graveyard, you can target a banished Orcust monster and special summon it. So when Nightmare sends it to the graveyard and then banishes itself, World Wand can say, alright, well, now I target the banished Nightmare, special summon it back to the field in exchange for banishing World Legacy World Wand. And again, I only include 2 of these because, as you're going to see with the extra deck, these can be very easily recycled. So, and they have a little fun little ability where if you happen to have one of these in your hand and you send the other one to the graveyard, you can special summon the one that is the one that is from your hand. So a little fun ability if you just happen to get overloaded, then they both end up in the graveyard later on. So that is all the Orcust. These next monsters are actually going to be just kind of more darkness support, but also, again, that little bit of Lightsworn twist. And that only Lightsworn monster is 3 Raiden. Now, the only ability that should be of concern here is the one that just sends cards to the graveyard. Once per turn, you can send top 2 cards of your deck to the graveyard, and then it gets an attack bonus increase. But again, the focus for these guys is just to get the Orcust in the graveyard. And as you're going to see with the spells and traps, there's easy ways to get these guys to hand and also send more Orcust cards to the graveyard is where you want the majority of them. So I include 3 Raiden. Plus, he's not that bad of a beast stick either, just a simple 4-level star monster to attack with. Okay, and the last trio of the deck are actually kind of misfits since I only have 1 of each. 2 of them because you really can only have 1 of each. But the third one is actually pretty scary in its own right. Armageddon Knight, very simple. When it's normal summoned, send a dark monster from deck to grave. Dark Grepher, basically same thing. You could discard a level 5 or higher dark to special summon it from your hand, but also once per turn you can send a dark monster from your deck to the graveyard with Dark Grepher. So again, very useful for dark decks. The one that I include that's very unique is Chaos Dalius. Now, with his ability, very effective with the field spell because later, just in a little bit, you're going to get well acquainted with that one. For Orcust fans are probably squealing right now. But with Chaos Dalius, as long as a field spell is on the field, none of your dark or light monsters can be targeted with card effects. And so basically, much like with Chaos decks, I have to banish a light and a dark. Well, fortunately, we just have a bunch of Raidens and dark monsters, so you can easily summon out Chaos Dalius. With its ability, with its special summoning condition, and also one little colorful ability it has. If you have a field spell on the field, I haven't used this ability too much, but I just use it for the non-targeting aspect. But basically, when you decide to, and you have a field spell on the field, you can target cards up to the number of field spells, which will mostly either be this, or if your opponent has one, then you can banish those cards. So this is pretty much also a card where if you got light and darks in your graveyards, you got your field spell out, Chaos Dalius would be perfect because it also, like I said, it protects itself from card effects since it's also a dark. So that is the monster build of this. So very good to have. The next one is the spells and traps, and I'm just going to go right off the bat. Just 1 Orcust Babble is all that you need. If it's sent to the graveyard, or if it's in your graveyard, you can easily bring it back by discarding a card, bringing it back to your hand. This basically, in short terms, makes all your Orcust monsters on the field, the Orcust Link monsters on the field, and the regular effect Orcust monsters in your graveyard quick effects. So, for example, I'll show you the extra deck, but I'm looking at, for example, like Orcust Symbol Skeleton, for example, which is one that, again, is involved in a later combo, where instead of just summoning out from the graveyard during your turn, it can be during your opponent's turn thanks to Orcust Babble. So again, it's just one of those, like, you think your opponent's cleared your field, but if you got an Orcust Symbol Skeleton in your graveyard, it's a quick, oh, I can get out one of my Dingirsus or one of my High Link Orcust monsters. And again, it makes any Orcust monster activates in graveyard, so Nightmare, Brass Bombard, any of those become quick effects right off the bat, including all the Link monsters that are Orcust on your field. Galatea is a good one that I like to use. So 1 of these for Orcust Babble. And just for the Lightsworn Raidens, I include 3 of these, the Charge of the Light Brigades. I'm hoping to get a shiny variation later, but basically this sends the top 3 cards from your deck to the graveyard. Again, focus being Orcust need to be in the graveyard, so perfect for that. And it adds a Raiden from your deck to your hand because it's a level 4 or lower Lightsworn, and so it just gets Raiden, more discarding that you can use with Raiden. Again, a lot more opportunity. Get those Orcust Symbol Skeletons, Brass Bombards, Nightmares in the graveyard. It's perfect with these cards. So I do 3 Charge of the Light Brigade. For a little bit of extra draw power, I do 2 Orcust Returns. This can be searched out with Galatea's ability, or if it just comes to hand, then just says, oh, you can take an Orcust or World Legacy card on field or in hand, send it to the graveyard to draw 2 cards. And so I don't run too many of those, but it is a good card to help loosen things up. For the single spell cards, I run 1 Monster Reborn. I think that's self-explanatory. Instant Fusion. Most of you know about this combo, which is getting out the Shadal Winda lock, which I'll tell you what that is in just a little bit. One Foolish Burial, again, just another way of sending Orcust to grave. Terraforming, just another way to get out Orcust Babel. Reinforcement of the army, just a way to get out the dark monsters that I have, like Dark Grepher and them. And I added this one for one, because when you have Brass Bombard, especially being ones, you can again send unneeded Orcust monsters that don't need to be in the hand to the grave and get out Brass Bombard to your field, which opens up the combo even more. So those are all the single types, and again, I'll explain why Instant Fusion, for those who know, is for Shadal Winda. And finally, for the main deck, we got the traps. I'm a sucker for these cards, so I do 3 Orcust Crescendos. If any Link monster Orcust is on your field, you can negate the activation of spell, trap, or monster abilities and banish them. Mostly it's just destroyed, but these banish instead. And with a side little hint I like with these is when it's in the graveyard, not in the same turn you send these to the graveyard or use these, but the turn that is not sent to the graveyard, you can banish this and add a level 4 Dark Machine type from your deck to your hand, which is basically used to get out Gear Soup. Downside is you can only special summon Dark Machine type monsters for the rest of the turn, but in case almost everything here is a Dark Machine, not considering Raiden or any of these dark guys, but again, very little conflict comes from that because most of the extra deck you're going into is Dark Machine, so Orcust Crescendo rarely ever stops that. Just for added little protection, I do Orcust Core. Basically, you can banish Orcust cards from your graveyard. I think it's a little bit. Yep, you can banish or just any monster from graveyard, and when your opponent is about to target a Orcust monster with a card effect, this this prevents it from. It's almost like I want to say it's almost like Fire Formation Tencent for Fire Fists. Where all of a sudden it's on effect, or the monster is unaffected by card effects. This just prevents targeting effects from any Orcust monsters. But if you give up the card when a Orcust monster is about to be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can also just send this off to the graveyard and protect them that way. So again, very useful trap card. Again, it can be searched out with Galatea, just a little bit of extra little iron protection in case you already have like the Crescendos in your hand and you just want a little bit of extra battle line. So I include 2 of those. Just for fun, I also include both Orcust attacks. Basically, when an attack is declared, you can tribute an Orcust or World Legacy World monster. Monster that attacks gets banished. So it's its own little dimensional prison with Orcust. And again, it gets Orcust monsters in the graveyard where you probably would want them to be. And finally, I just included 1 Solemn Strike to be along with the counter traps, just any special summon or negation of a monster ability. So that is the whole main deck, and in just a few seconds we're going to go straight to that. But this whole deck's basically theme is send cards to the graveyard, get their effects off, get Babel on the field so you can make them all quick effects, so during your opponent's turn you can also kick off the special summons. Now for the deck's highlights, the extra deck, and this is where most of its punching power is going to be. So first things first, the 2 heavy hitters I have, 2 Dingirsu, the Orcust of the Evening Star. This is where most of your heavy power hitting is going to come in. Not only does it have a Wicked Protection ability by detaching overlay units, but its summon ability is basically when this card hits the field, you get 2 options. First option is probably one of the more deadlier ones. Send a card on your opponent's field to the graveyard. And I think so it doesn't even target. It just says send 1 card to your opponent's graveyard. So any of those can't target abilities does not work on Dingirsu. He'll just send the card away. Secondary card is if you have any banished Orcust and he's summoned out to the field, you can attach that banished Orcust unit or Dark Machine type onto him, and he can use that unit for extra protection. So again, lots of strategies with him, and I'll keep one of them out because again, a lot of these guys are actually very connected to every other members of the deck that you're going to see. So, yep, I just include 2 Dingirsus because that's plenty enough. For this next one, I include again the other greatest highlight of the deck, which is 3 Galateas of the Orcust Automaton. She's the searcher. She's the one who's going to bring your banished machine type monsters back to your deck once per turn, and if you do, you can get a Orcust spell or trap card and actually set that card on the field. So this isn't just adding to hand, this is a set, I believe. Again, it's been a little bit, but nope, yep, directly set. So again, get that counter trap Orcust Crescendo, get that cores out to help defend your other Orcust monsters, and this can go right into Dingirsu because Dingirsu says if you just have one Link Orcust monster, you can bring him out. So again, when you are done with what she has to bring, get out the heavy guns. So I include 3 of those. Next one, I just include 1 of each. I'm debating whether to include 2 of the Longirsu, but I include just 1 of him and then maybe 1 to 2 of him. Longirsu basically is takes 3 and again can be brought pretty easily with Galatea and another Orcust. But with his abilities, you can target 2, I think it's up to 2 Orcust monsters that are banished and bring them back to the deck. And you can actually send a Link monster on the field to the graveyard. So very, very cool the ability. Also, if he's targeting or pointing at someone, he cannot be targeted by card effects. Cannot be destroyed by card effects. Sorry, if I can read. And I should point out too with Galatea as well, if she's pointing to anybody or anyone's pointing to her, she cannot be destroyed by battle. So they each have like a little connection unit that they have with each other. So yeah, very strong Longirsu. A very good way to get those unwanted Link monsters off the field, and also just to get a little more power for later on. And once again, a target for Dingirsu. The final Orcust monster is Orchestron, the biggest and strongest of them. When he is linked to another, he cannot be destroyed by battle or by card effects. And I don't really use his secondary ability that much, just basically target 3 banished machine-type monsters, shuffle them into the deck, and if you do, any Link monsters that are linked to your opponent go down to 0. So again, just a little bit more of Link hatred there for anyone who's standing around for Orchestron. But I just bring him up again for add a little bit of extra added power, being the strongest of the Orcust monsters. Okay. And the rest of this is the good old alternative artillery or cannon fodder. Access code talker, very easy to get out in this deck. I recommend it, especially with Orcust, those that you don't use. Borrelode Sword Dragon, Nightmare Unicorn, Nightmare Phoenix. I include IP Masquerade to combo with Unicorn. So a good way to get that out. And again, Dark Attribute monsters are very useful in the deck. Link Rebo for those brass bombards, because you know you want to get them to the graveyard as soon as possible. Why not get out some next block attack? And for those of the trolley, why did you use Instant Fusion? There she is, El Shaddai Winda. And I love this one because, again, it limits to 1 special summon per turn. And with Instant Fusion, you're saying, well, why would this be useful? Doesn't it pop it at the end of the turn? Well, with Dingirsu, you can detach one of its overlay units to prevent a card from getting blown up, which would be El Shaddai due to the Instant Fusion. Still wouldn't be able to attack, but she would stay on the field because the destruction would pass that turn and she would just remain on the field. So again, that is the whole entire extra deck. Again, very enjoyable, and again, just a combination with Galatea's and Dingirsu's. Very useful feature when you are just working with the very quick effects and also with so that is the entirety of this Orcust / Lightsworn build. And I appreciate you guys for viewing, and again, give credit to our video editor over here, especially that. So, yep, there he is. And you guys have a pleasant day or evening.